All right, so for my segment, I wanted to talk about music and Spotify. Everyone in this house, we're all pretty big music people. There are some really interesting statistics from a site run by a guy named Glenn McDonald, and he kind of figures out a way to flatten the music genre space per Spotify. So he has some kind of system that goes through and like kind of indexes all Spotify genres and puts them into a big list. So in 2018 December, this list had 2,424 genres. As of this month, it's like 3,260. There is just an incredible amount of music genres on Spotify. Spotify has 50 million songs and 40,000 new songs are added every day. In today's world, what does your music taste say about you?
I think it is an incredible thing that there is such diversity of music. I was playing music at a friend's house recently, and I was like, oh man, I just found this song and I love it. And I played it and they were like, this is exactly what I would imagine your music, like when you find a new song, this is what it would be. And I think that is because like, even though you and me and Ryan and Sam have a lot of overlap,
right?
There is so much music that I can still find a niche that's like, this is the stuff that I love. And even though we might have a lot of shared interest, people can still be like one time Sam sent me a song this past summer, Reruns by Sugar ? And he said, I don't really like this song, but it sounds like you. And he was absolutely right. I love that song. And like, I think that is such an amazing thing that like, there's still archetypal genres that we can say like, oh, I like indie. Oh, I like alt. I like Indietronica or like whatever. But I think it's amazing that there's so much derivation thereof that now everyone can, like, you don't have to be part of, oh, I'm punk, so I listen to the Dead Kennedys and like the same six bands.
That's what
as all
I'm
the other
saying,
people.
though, is that those subgenres, when they were larger and more narrowly defined, had cultures behind them. So what I'm saying now is that, like, you can't even properly inventory how many subgenres you listen to. Right. So either one of two things happen. Either I think you become like you're hyper segmented and you say, oh, I'm this, and this, or you just try to find a more broad term for the type of music you listen to, even though there are more subgenres than there've ever been before.
The thing with entertainment is that there's always going to be top dogs, right? I love the 1975, and that is not a niche band. That is a huge band that lots of people listen to. And so that allows me to find other people that might share my music taste, right? Bands like Hippocampus, like Coin and 1975 and Bleachers are larger bands, right? They're not super, like, you'd never be like, oh yeah, Coin is this super niche, like themed band. Like they're the people that are either taking some of like the larger trends of that, so they're like the top layer. And then there's a whole bunch of blend downs where people might take from their sounds and then get inspired and be like, oh, well, I'm going to do that in another kind of way. So you can hear more diversity based off that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. So what you've just kind of described is that we have these big bands that we're going to, and these big bands, like big name bands, they don't necessarily have a clear genre anymore. Like 1975 isn't clearly defined. The Bleachers isn't clearly defined in terms of like in terms of how much you could actually divide the genres. So do you think in order to retain the same community that punk rockers did with just a couple bands back in the day, that we are sticking more to artists themselves as identity rather than genre?
I would say so.
Okay.
I would say, indie is a great example of being like, I couldn't even tell you what that word means.
Yeah.
Like somehow Hippocampus is indie and Brockhampton is indie. And they really have nothing in common, but we're just using this blanket term. And I like this point because I feel like we're using the term out of an appeal to tradition because we haven't figured out the next way to look at the groups because we're still thinking, people still talk in terms of rock, hip hop, indie. And that is like such an antiquated
archaic
way of looking at what all of this stuff is. But I think we just don't know where to go to next. I couldn't tell you how to describe. But the thing is that there isn't a lot of crossover. So like people that describe themselves as indie people listen to this Brockhampton and Hippocampus, but it's like I don't understand how it all fits into the bubble, but in some ways it still does. Does that make sense?
The way that the pie was cut, 20 years ago, people are kind of still sticking to those slices.
Right, because they might listen to things as different as Hippocampus and Brockhampton, but they aren't listening to Selena Gomez.
I think we term almost everything that isn't like really popular or conventional music as indie. And when people, indie. And when people ask me like, what kind of music do you listen to? And because not as much Hippocampus, but it's like some Hippocampus-ish things and Brockhampton, I really don't know what to say. And because there's so many genres and we don't know what to call it, I really just name bands. So back to that thing, like it's not even a genre anymore. It's I name the artists I like.
Right, and I think you have to.
Yeah.
I think you absolutely have to now, because just the lines have been so blurred, and we just simply don't have the capacity. Like I think it's an actual brain capacity problem. The same reason that like we can really only keep track of so many brands at one time. Like you think of laundry detergent, you could probably give me 2 brands that like right off the top of your head. Obviously there's a lot, right? But I think it's the same way, is we simply just don't have the capacity to keep all these subgenres in our heads, even though we can recognize them as we're listening to it. So I think the default is then bands.
I can't think of 2 laundry detergents. I'm dying.
Do you have one?
I have Tide.
Okay, well then that fits my point still.
I have Tide. Oh, Don. I was trying to say
Dish soap.
Dish. Yeah,
That's a television company. I can't think of a second detergent.
I was thinking Dial dish soap.
Dial.
Is that
Once again, we have not gotten a second detergent yet.
I think this is my point exactly, is that we don't have capacity for labels at one point.
Dude, how do we both say dish?
Dish soap?
Dish soap is Dawn dish soap, Dial phone.
Dial?
Okay, I think that this is incredibly contentious and prevalent, especially when you're talking about Grammys. I've seen this complaint rising more and more and more, where like Igor by
Tyler the Creator
had to run against artists like Lizzo, and like he runs against the same people as like Kendrick Lamar. He doesn't have the same music. It's basically something completely different. They just both rap.
Right.
That's why I'm pretty sure Tyler was like, I didn't accept this because it's kind of racist. It's just, like they just say urban, and it basically just means all black music.
Right.
And he said that it's racist because of how they're grouping people. And I think that racism can play into it, but I think it also sounds like kind of like that, where like, yeah, me and Ryan listen to indie music,
right?
But and we have lots of bands in common, but under that there is a bunch of sub genre and like kind of bands and styles that are so stratified. That's like,
right.
It's basically not
it
even
becomes
the same
a problem
kind.
of over inclusivity, right? In order to, at what point do we say, okay, now we'll include this genre in the Grammys, but wait, that genre, in this subsection is deserving of its own Grammy. Right. So I think like when we're talking about an award show that has to it can't be indefinite.
Yeah, they can't just have 500 awards, because then at some point it's just like everyone gets an award because they're all doing their own kind of thing.
So I think what the solution would be is that we disband Grammys, we defund Grammys, and then you try to pick maybe 10 genres that are umbrella genres, and then you start a music award ceremony under that. That's the only way I can think that it evolves.
I'm going to take a different angle.
All right.
Also OxyClean. But now I'm going to take a different angle. And I'm going to say that the Grammys could still exist in an entirely different format, where people in the industry pick like 25 people to acknowledge just overall as the best artists making the best music of the year.
Okay.
No genres, no anything. Just everyone votes on what music moved them the most.
I think that makes way more sense, because comparing Ariana Grande to
the Alabama Shakes.
Yeah. I mean, I remember like watching the Fantano on the most recent Grammys Awards, and it was crazy. He was like, yeah, why is like Tyler the Creator getting compared to, because I think he might have been under Pop or something, and then like he got compared to like Norman fucking Rockwell, which like doesn't make any sense, because they're not even kind of remotely similar. And so I think that whole idea of like, let's just give acknowledgement to artists that are doing great things this year, And if they want to describe themselves some way and be like, oh yeah, I'm making this music, then call it that.
Yeah, I can get behind that. All right, well, that's going to end the discussion on music. There's a lot more to unpack here. I have several other ways that I could take this, and I would like to in the future. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper because this site actually has a lot of information. There's a lot of way to break things down. So,
dude, I wonder if we could. You would have to listen to 10 different genres a day to listen to every genre on there. I would love to listen to one song from every genre.
Yeah, maybe we can come back and we can pick some pretty obscure ones and say, okay, this makes sense in here.
I was looking. I walked into Austin's room as he was just scrolling through the list of genres, and I saw like Irish folk pop, and I was like,
Right.
what?
It has to
That
be.
sounds sick.
I love Spanish indie electronica.
Yes,
I believe that.
Yes, dude. Ryan was getting into that this summer, and he
Wait,
showed
is that
me.
a real genre?
Probably.
That is a real. So
Pito de Pasione.
Ryan Lopez was like trying to learn Spanish this summer, and he was like trying to do all he could. So he was listening to Spanish music, and he found like all these like little Spanish indie electronica artists,
Right.
and they were
No,
so
it's true.
good.
Everything divides.
I guess
It
I could have just named any language and then 2 genres, and it would have really been a real genre.
Do it again. Do it again.
All right, wow.
You clearly
that's
could
it.
not do it. Yeah, you said I could have done it. You can't do it.
I couldn't think of any more genres. man.
OxyClean,
I-
OxyClean.
I got folk, and then I was going to go German, but I couldn't think of anything besides German folk.
I do know German folk music.
I'm
I'm
sure you
well
do.
aware of German folk music. It's grand. Big
Mm.
fan. All right, but yeah, we'll explore that for another week.
I would love to.
Cool. That's the docket.
Excellent.
Bum, 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 ba-na-na-na, bum, 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 ba-na-na-na, bum, 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 bum.